Hey guys, welcome back to Two Girls, One Crime. I am one of your hosts, Megan.
I always love to see what you're about to do for that intro. I'm Emily.
It's always my favorite part because I
It
feel like I'm
is.
redoing it every time. But anyways,
We love
welcome
it.
back to episode 13, the lucky number
Hmm.
13, or should I say unlucky number. Um,
We'll find out.
last week we did look at our insight. Yeah. We looked
Hmm.
at our insights and we found out we have international listeners from Australia and England. So for this
Yes.
week, we are targeting our international listeners.
Targeting.
I meant, we love
Channeling? No, we're not channeling them
channeling.
either.
Oh, advertising. We're doing something.
Yes. An
We're
homage to our UK
An homage.
listeners.
That's wonderful. An homage to our UK listeners. And we are going to be
Yes.
talking about actually an international case of Madeleine
Yes.
McCann.
Hmm.
Whether or not you know specifics or general, I feel like most people have heard of who this girl is, what
Yeah.
has happened. It's spanned over the last like 20 years. So
Hmm.
we're going to be doing such a small snippet of it. If you want to do a deeper dive as usual, let us know. But
Yes.
we're gonna get into it. And as usual, Em's gonna start us with that background, and it's gonna be a great time.
You know it. Thanks for the intro.
Of course, I'm always
Um,
here to set
uh,
you on
of
fire.
course, of course. Oh, whoa. I don't think your expressions are what you think they are. Set me on fire.
It's a very giggly episode.
I guess so. Anyways, yes, we wanted to talk about this for our international listeners because we can't believe that you guys are listening to us from different countries, which is absolutely insane. Um, but yeah, so we're gonna go into a quick little background on Madeline, her family, kind of like some basic details about this case. Um, and I apologize if you can hear the people in my apartment complex absolutely jamming to tunes right now because it is loud to me. So hopefully that doesn't annoy any of you. Okay, we're gonna get into the background now. Take 700. We will talk about the whole story and the disappearance and everything in a little bit, but I just kind of wanted to give a little background on Madeline, her family, where they were staying, all of that. So this took place in Portugal on May 3rd, 2007. Madeline was 3 years old. This was one of the most heavily reported missing persons cases, like in the past 20 years in modern history, literally. Um, it's so crazy like that there's so much information actually. Like this happened just about 20 years ago and there
Hmm.
is so much media about it.
There's
Um,
also still so much coming out, and
100%.
investigators still
Hmm.
looking and trying to find people. It's insane that it has lasted this long, which is
Correct.
horrible to say, but I mean,
No,
it's
but it's
insane that
crazy.
the coverage is still there.
Yeah, especially like a lot of cases that we've talked about,
Hmm.
there is not all that information now. So it is pretty crazy to see this with her case. Which again, it's horrible because her location still remains unknown today. A lot suspect that she has passed away. But again, we're not sure where she is. So
Hmm.
a little bit about her background. Madeline Beth McCann, she was born on May 12th of 2003 in, I'm assuming it's Leicester, England. Um, this is crazy actually because she's older than Megan and I. Like our birthdays are June and July and she was born in May, which is
Wait,
crazy.
that's
Isn't
crazy.
that weird? So that I thought was just like kind of crazy because we're looking back on it and she's like just about our age, which is
Hmm.
crazy. Um, Again, since she was about 3 at the time of this disappearance, she didn't have a lot of background on her. The police widely spread her information, kind of that she had blonde hair. She had bluish green eyes with a brown spot on like one of her legs. She also had a dark, like brown strip in one of her eyes. But that's kind of all we really know about her. She was just a young girl.
Hmm.
The parents, Kate and Jerry McCann, um, again, they were the parents to Madeline. They also had another set of twin children. Um, They were both physicians. Kate specialized in a ton of areas. She worked like obstetrics, anesthetics. I think believe she ended in general practice. Jerry was a cardiologist. He had a sports science degree. So they were
Mhm.
both very smart people and very well versed in the medical fields. Um, so that's kind of like really all we know about the family. I'm just going to say a little bit of information about the where they were staying and all of that, and then Megan will get into the disappearance. So we know that this family was staying in Portugal at this resort called Praia da Luz. They were there for like a 7 night vacation. They got to this resort on April 28th of 2007. They rented a The way that this resort works is like that you rent a week's worth of like rooms basically. So they stayed in this
It's
apartment.
kind of like similar to a timeshare type.
Exactly. I believe it is just like the Portugal equivalents to it. Um, So their apartment was number 5A, which is very important. They talk about that a ton. It was a ground level apartment with 2 bedrooms. They were on this trip with like a few other families who were in rooms 5B and 5D, so all on the same floor. The McCann children stayed in a bedroom that was closest to the front door, which the parents said that they kept locked at all times. But this room did have an like exterior facing window that overlooked the sidewalk and the walkway outside
Mhm.
of the complex, which is like a massive piece of information. There was a window and like shutters that were there. Um, and so that's kind of where the story begins. They were just a family staying at this resort. I believe they'd been there before, like they were with a bunch of friends, all of that, and then begins the disappearance and where the case gets a little crazy.
Yeah, so as Emily said, they went on vacation on April 28th, and at this
Hmm.
point, the disappearance happened on May 3rd, 2007. So it was about 3, 4 days. This night in particular, the parents and the parents' friends decided that they were going to go out to dinner while they left the rest of their kids in each of their rooms.
Hmm.
And something very important about this is a lot of people would argue and say that's really dangerous. Why would you leave a 3 year old, younger siblings, all those kids who aren't old enough to take care of themselves,
Yeah.
um, in a hotel room? The restaurant they were staying at was down the street, and it
Hmm.
was, I believe it was a couple, like 100 yards away
Hmm.
from where they were eating to where they were staying.
Yeah.
So, um, the group of friends went out to dinner while Madeleine, her 2 sisters, and her brother stayed in the apartment.
Hmm.
While the kids were all sleeping, the parents came up with this system where they would keep rotating every couple of minutes or every
Hmm.
10-ish minutes to go check in on the kids, see how they're doing. Again, keep in mind, it was on ground level. It's 2007, so there wasn't as much, I would say, security as there is now.
Hmm.
And it was very easy for them to just go in and out, check and see if the kids are okay.
Which they had
Um,
done like prior nights also.
they had done prior nights, and it wasn't a huge deal.
Yeah.
And nothing had seemed out of the ordinary at this point.
Hmm.
Um, so after a couple of routine checks, Kate McCann went to go check on the kids again and discovered that Madeline was gone.
Hmm.
Um, the parents searched the hotel complex, everywhere around the hotel complex, the resort, everywhere until about dawn because they had no clue what had happened.
Hmm.
Um, there was technically no forced entry that occurred, so they
Yeah.
and the rest of the kids were still there. So
Which is
after,
odd.
it was very odd, it made no
Yeah.
sense, and also it's a family where nobody seemed to be targeting them at any point.
Right.
So they were all very confused, and then they got the police involved.
Yeah.
Um, Keep in mind, around this time, they were on vacation, so they weren't in their home country per se. So they started to get police involved, local police. On May 12th, and here's a couple of dates, and keep in mind, so much was going on during this time,
Yeah.
and there's so many little things, but these are kind of the main things that are highlighted throughout.
Yeah.
Um, so on May 12th, so a couple days after she was initially reported missing,
Mhm.
they gathered search parties to search the area. Border control closed off many borders around the country so that people
Mhm.
couldn't leave, they couldn't, get out easily.
Mhm.
Um, they got tons of police involved. So everyone in the community was searching for this little girl.
Mhm.
Parents were on the news trying to beg and plead for someone to bring back their child. It was a lot of coverage.
Mhm.
On May 26th is when they got their first sort of lead, one might say. At
Mhm.
this point, they had no leads. Nobody saw anything. There weren't security cameras that could see the hotel room. There was nothing. But on May 26th, the police finally issued a description of someone who saw a man carrying a child the night of the disappearance. So that was about 2 weeks earlier. Um, they really had the person who saw the man across the street, so they had no
Mhm.
description of really what the man looked like. It was
Mhm.
just, we see this man
And it was
carrying a
nighttime.
it was nighttime. There's many things here where it wasn't super vague, and also some of this stuff I will say I don't have the best information on because it's been 20 years, but you
Totally.
get the gist.
Yeah.
Um, so at
We're
this
doing the
point,
best with what we've got.
we're trying our best.
Yeah.
And at this point, really, it's kind of just all vague stuff about a kid was seen. They don't even know if it was Madeline. It
Yeah.
was just a hypothetical. So
Yeah.
we'll get into that a little bit more. Um, in August of that year, it was 100 days that she had been missing. So August
Mhm.
3rd, is when the parents came out, and at this point, there had been no new leads, no evidence, no one was arrested, there were no suspects. It just had gone dark.
Mhm.
Um, they announced at this point in time that they believed that Madeline wasn't alive anymore, that
Mhm.
someone should have killed her or could have killed her, and at this point, they were more so searching for evidence that she was dead and searching for a body. On January 20th of that year, so we're a little bit past, they released a sketch of a creepy man, is what they called it, that was seen
Mhm.
on the resort around the time of the abduction. Um, this sketch in particular, as well, they didn't really have a lot of information. There's a couple sketches out there, and we'll get into that a little bit more, but again, it's all this kind of vague stuff. So, like I mentioned, it was really bizarre how everything went down. And on
Mhm.
top of that, there's just nothing.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of the evidence when Madeline was taken was swept away because cleaners came in, parents were touching things, moving things. So a lot of that was messed up, and the crime
There's
scene
also like a
wasn't.
ton of other kids too. Like
Hmm.
they don't know like the rules of like you can't touch anything or, you know.
Yeah, they had no idea. And again, the parents were just trying to figure it out too at the time. They weren't
Yeah.
necessarily concerned about preserving the crime
That's not your
scene.
first thought like when you're
No,
looking for a miss. Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
looking to find your baby. You're not
Exactly.
looking to preserve a room where they were taken.
Right.
Um, so that impacted a lot of this, but at this point they're following up with pretty much any lead they can.
Yeah.
On May 3rd of 2008 is a year of the disappearance, and I
Mhm.
want to also preface the family, specifically the parents, were super involved
Yeah.
in the case still, like constantly on the media, constantly sending out text messages, trying to get news coverage for people to keep looking for their child because they believe their
Mhm.
kid was still alive.
Mhm.
Um, so at this point, it's kind of slows down a little bit. There's not much that's come up. And in May of 2013 is when there's a little bit more information that was put out to the public. So,
Mhm.
May of 2013, the police reported that they had identified several persons of interest within the case. They did not release any information of who these people were, they just
Mhm.
released that there were people they were looking into.
Mhm.
Um, July, the police reported that there was new evidence and they were opening more formal investigations.
Mhm.
Again, super vague as to what that was, but they were
Right.
just saying we're going to go deeper into it. And then October of 2013, they identified 41 potential suspects. not naming any in particular, but just saying there's 41 people we're looking at. Um, and kind of the final two things that really came up were in 2025. Um, there was actually an increase in funding for the Scotland Yard who had taken over this case at this point in
Mm-hmm.
April, where more than 100,000 pesos were added to the funds in order to help the investigation to keep it going.
Mm-hmm.
And then May of 2018 or 2025 marked 18 years of the disappearance, and that was a really big um, point in
Mm-hmm.
kind of the history of the timeline because at this point I believe she would have been 20 years old in 2025, and that
Mm-hmm.
was a big landmark for the parents because the parents still believed that she was still alive, like somebody out there knew something, or she was kind of under those like false what's called, you know what I'm saying, the person where they don't actually know who they are.
Correct. Yeah.
um
Like if
and
they were like abducted and brought into a whole new life,
yeah,
like
and
they
they
would
have
have no
no
idea.
idea. And
Right.
especially she was so young, and there's been so many videos I feel like on social media, and
Yeah.
I've seen
I
them
was
of
gonna
people
say that.
being like,
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm Madeleine McCann, and then they
Yeah.
do research into it or they do DNA tests and then it comes back as they're not.
Yeah.
Um,
I
one
do think
thing,
though, like if she was out there, like there are so many people who like find out things they don't want to find out through like the DNA or like ancestry.com or that type of stuff. So I do feel like if she was out there and like happened to do this test, like she would be found. You know what I mean? Like it
yeah.
could be connected if other people in her family or if she finds out like if she was abducted and like kept by another family or another person, like she would find out
hmm
if she did that type of thing. So I
I
don't know.
definitely feel if she's still out there, it's kind of an underlying thing where it's not a situation where we can kind of picture she's with a new dad or with a new mom and
Right.
they kidnapped her and she's living her life. And I don't think it's that. If anything, I think it's a little bit more sinister.
Yeah.
But really to preface with this whole thing, and again, this was so condensed, there's like 20 years of research out there, but so
Hmm.
much of the evidence and the suspects over the years, they like continue to push for her release. They try to figure out what happened or at least figure out who did it, even if they can't find the
Yeah.
body, it's just they're trying to figure it out. And this is a case that's very different than I feel like a lot of the cases we've talked about because they've kept so
Hmm.
much of the information secret to the public.
Yeah.
A big part of it is because it's an active investigation
Hmm.
and the parents are so heavily involved in making sure the police continue to pursue this that they
Yeah.
keep a lot of it private so they can investigate it without now social media getting out and somebody figuring it
Hmm.
out. So a lot of this was very vague for that
Hmm.
reason because they want to try to find this girl.
Right.
So,
Which is pretty huge because I do feel that if this were to happen today, like a case that we're going to be talking about next week
mhm,
in next week's episode, that was so heavily in the public eye, I do
mhm.
feel that this, I don't know, this just feels like a case that like their kid was so young and they're
Yeah.
like still searching for her. I don't know. I
Well,
feel
I
that
also
it's good that the police did withhold some information to at least keep the family in the know, but like nobody else in the
Well,
know.
even if you think about it, with how in 2003 phones weren't really a thing, social media was
Hmm.
not even a thing, or
Mm-mm.
it was just starting maybe a couple years later. So it's crazy that in some ways it's a good thing that they keep some of this to themselves and
Yeah.
they don't share all of this, but in many ways a lot of her case I feel has continued because of social media and has
Yeah.
exploded. I believe that there was a time where, well, I know there was a time for myself where on my TikTok feed and all my feeds it
Hmm.
was Madeleine McCann, go find her. And this was, I want
Yeah.
to say in like 2020,
Mm.
and it was just out of the blue. And I believe it was around the time that it was one of the anniversaries of her disappearance,
Hmm.
but it exploded where everyone was like, this is where she is, this is where they're gonna
I think
find
this is her. I think this
her.
is,
Hmm.
yeah. Because I do also remember when we watched one of the documentaries. I don't know if there's just
One of
one,
our
but
famous
one,
documentaries.
yeah. Um, like even we went into a deep dive after that too. So it is interesting that
Hmm.
social media is keeping it alive and like everybody just like has a bit of hope that she will be found or just some
Yeah.
information will come out. Um, but yeah, it is really crazy that almost what if it happened in 2007? Yeah, next year, 20 years ago, like
Hmm.
it's crazy that it's still talked
Yeah.
about and still like
Hmm.
brought up in these types of ways, which
Well,
is I think cool.
and again, it's so bizarre because it is one of those, it's not one of the crazy ones we've talked about where, oh my gosh, this insane, like John Benet Ramsey is a great
Hmm.
one for
Hmm.
one of our first episodes where it made no sense.
Right.
Girl was held for ransom, then found dead in her basement, sexually assaulted, all those things. And then this is just normal, someone was just taken. They don't know the
Yeah.
motive, they don't know why, they don't know by who, and it just is so random.
Yeah.
So it
It's like a
just,
typical kidnapping case, but you have no idea the motive and you have no idea who did it, which
exactly.
is wild. Um, so this kind of brings us into some of the suspects. Megan talked about how there were like a million and one suspects, which is very true. Um, we're gonna kind of go in order of like the most, like the main ones. So the first one, who was one of the bigger ones, was kind of talked about 12 days after her disappearance. His name was Robert Murat. Um,
Murat? Murat?
Mu- yeah, I don't know how to say it. He was 34 and he actually was born in West London, but he lived at his mother's house in Portugal, which was literally 150 yards from apartment 5A and then like the complex also. So he was very, very close to their apartment and he could see it from his mom's house.
Hmm.
So he claimed that he wanted to help these police with the investigation because he had a daughter back home, back in London, who was about Madeleine's age. So he kind of became like an interpreter for the police, sort of helping them with language, but also just like helping them in general. Um, three of they called themselves the top of seven because there were like seven friends that were at this restaurant on this trip.
Hmm.
Um, so three of them actually said that they saw this man outside of apartment 5A like shortly before the disappearance. So did a nanny who was working at this vacation club and two other people who were just like random people on vacation, not connected to the top of seven or the McCanns at all. Um, which again, it's not super shocking that he was, I guess, seen near there because he lived near there, but his
Hmm.
mother did claim that he was home the whole evening. So that's suspicious if he was seen and his mom said that he was home the whole time. So that's kind of odd. In the end, he was, um, his status of suspect was lifted on July 21st of 2008. Um, Nothing
Hmm.
really like linked him to the disappearance. It was more so kind of like wrong time. Wait, right place, wrong time. Not right place. It wasn't a good situation for him, and it's not right place because that's wrong. Wrong place,
It's
wrong
wrong,
time.
wrong. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's it. That's
Wrong
it.
both. So yeah, again, there was nothing that connected him to the disappearance. It was a little suspicious. Um, Megan also kind of talked about this, but there was actually, while they were on the resort or at the resort, a lot of people claimed that there were these random men outside of the apartment and outside of the like vacation complex asking for money for like a nearby orphanage, which
Hmm.
there were no nearby orphanages or like anything along those same sorts. Um, this was like talked about by a bunch of people who were there that week who said that they also saw these people and that they also were asked for money. Um,
See, but I feel like you could argue, no offense to everybody out there who struggles with poverty or anything like that, but when you see maybe someone who is unfortunately homeless and they're
mhm,
asking for things, sometimes it's they want it for one thing, but in reality, they might go and use
mhm,
it for drugs, alcohol. So you could also
yeah,
argue and be like, these were truly just people who were struggling and
yeah,
they were asking for that, but they were going to use it for something else.
totally. Um, 100%. And like again, we don't know. And it was also very vague. Again, this happened almost 20
Hmm.
years ago. It was more so the fate fact it was fact and case. It was oh my gosh, I cannot speak today. It was the fact that in this case, like so many people, not even just the McCanns or the people they were with, were asked about
Hmm.
it. And this was like right before her disappearance. So I think people were more so like latching on to like the orphanage
For
part,
sure.
being like, what if she's there, but there's nothing nearby? So again, who knows? Um, Next, we're going to talk about how the McCann family and the parents were some major suspects in this case. Um, Again, they were obviously let off in 2008, but shortly after she disappeared, since the public and the media became like so invested in this case, everyone kind of turned to the parents, being like we said, why would they leave their children alone in the in the hotel apartment? Um, like, why was it just Madeleine that was taken, not the other kids? Um, all of these questions of like, why would you put the beds right under the windows? Why would you give this room? There were a ton of questions, and nothing, no evidence or anything led to
Hmm.
them actually, like, there was no evidence that showed that it was them. It was more so the lack of evidence and lack of answers. Um,
Well, there was also something I saw because they wrote a book. I believe it
mhm,
was 2 years after her disappearance. It was shortly after her disappearance.
mhm,
And a lot of people, like you said, with the public being so invested in their story,
yeah,
they kind of got like a book deal out of it.
mhm,
Um, and they wrote the book to talk about her and her story and
mhm.
trying to get the word out. But a lot of people looked at that and said, well, your kid is missing and you're off writing a book and then advertising
Yeah.
that you wrote this book. So
It's
things
also
where,
the same kind of way where they were so much in the news and they were so
oh my God,
involved,
they
which
were
it's like, of course, the parents are
everywhere.
going to be involved, but all of it kind of, people were thinking it was a little suspicious that they were like kind of using their daughter's kidnapping or case
Yeah.
to make money. Like it just
Mhm.
was,
Well, they were
a little odd.
everywhere. I
Hmm.
feel that it's not talked about enough how every news outlet or every opportunity they
Yeah,
had to talk to the public,
they
they
were
did.
there.
It wasn't,
Hmm.
we're going to stay silent. And it was
No.
constantly,
Hmm.
every 24 hours, there's news about them. And it's them talking about their family, their daughter.
Yeah,
It's not a representative for the family talking to the media.
it's
It
the
was none of
parents.
that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the other kids like end up sometimes in those too, which is also
Yeah.
interesting because with how hush hush the police were about everything, like, and then the family was the ones talking like to the media. I don't know, that just seems a little odd too.
And the only aspect I could argue for their sake is, well, they're continuing to try to get the word out about their daughter, have
Yeah,
people looking, make sure her case doesn't die, those things.
yeah,
And it is just odd that you're also, when is a point where maybe we're not going to be so public about
yeah.
this anymore? Because
Hmm.
I believe that they had spoken after all of this in documentaries. I could be
Hmm.
very wrong, but there's things where it wasn't just from right after her
Yeah, I
going
think you're
missing.
right.
It's years of them being documented and talking about
Yeah.
their daughter.
Yeah, it wasn't just because it started out with being obviously all the news that were
Yeah, which makes
outside of the
sense.
apartment, of course, but it did continue, like, even when they left Portugal, like, coming off the
Hmm.
plane, there were pictures and, like, media and
Yeah.
everything, and it just continued, which I do understand it. Like, I have no idea what I would do if my child got kidnapped. I
No.
would not be able to do anything. But so you never know, obviously, what's going through their head, but people did find that that was a bit suspicious. Um,
Hmm.
which we do obviously know it wasn't them. Well, they were ruled out. Police used like blood detection in the apartment, plus like cadaver dogs sniffed the
Hmm.
scene and ruled them out. But um, yeah, it's just it's very interesting and like that we still don't know what happened.
Yeah, no clue.
Ugh,
There's been no new update.
no, which also kind of like you said, the newest update was from 2020, which it's this guy Christian Brucker. He was German. He was living in the area at the time of her disappearance, and he was looked into because he was a German, a well-known German sex offender. Um, the police kind of looked at his criminal history, his phone records, other evidence. Um, he hasn't been charged with anything, I don't believe, and he denies all involvement. but they're still looking into it because he was in the area at the time.
Mhm.
He has a past. They looked at all of the everything. So they're still working on that, but they're still working on the case in general. But it's hard. 20 years later is hard.
Yeah, and again, this is just bizarre because there is truly nothing
Hmm.
at this point that can truly come up new. For
Right.
example, the hotel where this all happened, the room continues to be used, so the crime
Yeah.
scene is gone. The
Yeah.
evidence they collected, it was all messed up because the parents were searching for the kids, and that was a huge component of why there's not that much evidence.
Yeah.
2003, there were security cameras, but there wasn't a million security cameras. Ring
Yeah.
doorbells weren't a thing. So it's kind of as if there's a dead end, but there's always that hope that she's out there and alive because they never found a body. So we
I
truly
know.
have no clue she could be alive.
Yeah. And they
And
did close the borders pretty quick, so I do find it hard to believe that she or whatever like is in a completely different country. Like
mhm.
we don't
Well,
know, which is
there's
the thing.
one
We don't know.
thing that I know is coming out during the time of the Epstein files,
Mm.
where a lot of people talked about how she could have possibly been kidnapped by
Hmm.
the girlfriend or wife of Jeffrey Epstein, because a big thing as the media, the news, all those things came out about the island and how they took children there, all those things.
Hmm.
And there's a police sketch of the person. I want to say it's something Maxwell. I'm going to pronounce her first name wrong, but
Mm.
there's a sketch that looks very similar to that. And I know a lot of people recently have been saying that could be a part of it as well, and how
Hmm.
it's this whole big thing that nobody had any clue of until all this stuff started to come out.
Hmm.
So that could also be, and it's horrible to think about, but it is interesting to be, well, maybe we have no clue. It's
We literally
a
have no
complete up
idea.
in the air. And
Yeah.
that could be an answer that they just haven't looked into, but now they're
Yeah.
looking into. We don't know.
Right. Yeah. It's wild. And that just her body hasn't been found. Like it's
Yeah.
not even a question of what happened. It's like it's a question of what happened and where the heck is she? Like,
Hmm.
yeah. Ugh.
Very sad case, but there's a
Mm.
lot of interesting, and you could write a book report on this entire
Oh my
case, but
gosh. Yeah.
it's
Even
very
how
much one.
sad, sorry, you can keep
No,
going.
go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Even just like how sad it is, it's like the documentary and like all the stuff about it is so interesting. And it's just like it makes your brain be like, what the heck happened? Like, even if you're not into this stuff like we are, or you're not like
Hmm.
intrigued in it, like it's just a case that is so puzzling, and anybody
Yeah.
would be intrigued in it because of how puzzling it is.
Yeah, and I think with kidnappings, there's statistics out there where usually kidnappings don't just happen randomly. I
Hmm.
believe the majority of kidnappings that happen out there are a kid is stolen from or stolen by a relative or somebody that they know.
Yeah.
It's usually not these cases where it is just a random abduction and they have
Hmm.
no clue.
Hmm.
Um, so that's the heartbreaking thing here is they have no idea. There's nobody who they know would have done it. I'm guessing that the entire family was looked into outside of the parents.
Yeah.
And it just there's nothing, and that's one thing that's really hard about this one.
Hmm. Like, wasn't there a situation where apartment complexes or like rooms in that complex were broken into previously?
Yes, there was. It was the area that they were staying in was nice, but it was kind of, from what I understand, it was kind of an area where it's nice on the resort, but once you kind of leave the resort, or if you
Outside.
have the
Yeah.
ability to, it's maybe not the nicest, or it's
Yeah.
okay, but there's typical crime. And because their level was on a first floor, it was very easy to break in. There was
Yeah.
a window literally right on the first floor that if you really wanted to, you could get into if you're strong enough.
Hmm.
Um, and there
Yeah, I think
wasn't
it
like,
was like a year before someone
someone had broken in
broke
and stolen
into,
things.
yeah. So I
Yeah,
do
so
wonder if that was a first attempt, like you were saying, that
mhm.
these things are planned or it's by someone that knows the area or knows the apartment or knows the family,
Hmm.
whatever. So it's just interesting that this has happened before at the same place.
Yeah, and who knows, right? Things could come out about it in the next 20 years.
Yeah,
And especially parents are heavily involved. Who knows if the kids are going to be heavily involved because now
right.
they're 23, 24. Or no, no,
Hmm.
no, they're younger than
They're
her, so they're
young, but
probably in their early
still.
20s.
Hmm.
So they could continue to keep this going if that's something they really want to do. And I think
Right.
it's always going to be one of those cases where it's so high
Puzzling.
profile
Right,
that
right.
like it can get out there.
Yeah. Oh, it's very,
I
makes me
always love
think.
when we end these on ah like
Literally.
every time we talk about it's always like, this was really depressing,
Yeah.
but
But
uh
but thanks for listening.
yeah.
But
Well,
we like to share the information with everybody and we like to talk about it anyways, so why not film a podcast on it?
hmm yeah. In terms of the frequently asked questions,
Hmm.
I'll we can both say this of there's not a lot of frequently asked questions because there's not a lot of information that has gone
Right.
on within this case, and a lot of it is
Hmm.
so secretive. A lot of the things
Or
that
the
people have,
frequently asked questions are just like questions in general, like about the
yeah,
case anyways. So, yeah.
yeah, a lot of them more so were targeted towards the parents. A lot of people still believe it was the parents, and like
Yeah.
we talked about, they were cleared in 2009. Whether or
Hmm.
not they were massively publicized and got all these deals and all these things,
Yeah.
they were cleared. A lot of people think that maybe she was just abducted by a random predator and
Hmm.
that's what happened, or it was targeted in some way, kind of going
Hmm.
back to like the Epstein stuff.
Or especially because they
So
were there for a few days before this happened
yes, people
anyways.
could have
So,
been watching.
right, right.
So that's
And
kind
knew
of
that the parents left the kids in the room alone during dinner time. Like
mhm.
all of it kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things where people don't really know, but these are all just
Hmm.
hypotheticals. But the parents were cleared, and a lot of people at this point kind of think someone just randomly took her, possibly sexually assaulted her, and then killed her.
Yeah.
But we still don't know. She could still be alive.
Hmm.
Another one was, has anything ever been found? Articles of clothing,
Hmm.
the body parts, nothing has ever been found. No
Hmm.
clothes, no bodies, no nothing that is traced to her has ever been found.
Hmm.
Nothing was left near the hotel. Um,
None of her
it's
DNA was found two
no, she
streets
was
over,
gone
nothing.
without a trace.
Yeah.
Um,
Which is
so the
wild. How does
yeah,
that
I
even
know.
happen?
Yeah,
Oh
I don't know.
gosh.
Yeah, I wish I knew because truly it's
Ugh.
bizarre.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, like Emily said, a lot of people ask about kind of the status of the case. It is
Yes.
super high profile. It continues to be active.
Hmm.
The German and British police have kind of taken over the case. It's been
Hmm.
bopped around to different departments.
Hmm.
But again, despite the continued media attention, the searching, parent involvement, there's been no proof of life or death. No one's come out being like, I killed her. Sorry,
Yeah.
guys. There's been nothing. So
Hmm.
everything is kind of at a standstill, but again, a lot of stuff we don't know about, a lot of stuff they don't
Yeah.
make aware to the public until
Yeah.
weeks, months later. So
Hmm.
who knows what's out there?
Yeah. It is so wild. You're right. We always do end it like that, but like they are.
They're crazy, and I feel that they just get us thinking. And
They
then we sit here.
do.
I hope everyone knows
We
we
sit
sit
here and
here.
ponder.
You think this is fake. This is not fake.
No, it's not. It really is not. Oh, yeah, it's
Mm.
wild.
We may giggle and we may goof, but this is sincere emotions.
Right. We do. We cut a lot of giggling out, guys.
This
We
week
like
there's
even
so
today,
many
yeah,
giggles.
today I was
Um,
really struggling with my words.
and
And I couldn't say, I had to start the background over like 4 times.
and you know what?
Literally.
That's
Literally, I think it
a
was four.
okay.
It is
It's
okay.
a okay.
It
It's
is
a
okay
okay.
because we're doing this for fun. There should be no
We're doing this
stress.
for fun. But
Yes.
if viewers have any suggestions of how we can
Yes.
improve,
Please tell.
we have gotten some suggestions about how we can improve our vocabulary. So
Yes, we tried to work on it in this episode.
we're gonna try to work on it.
Yes.
You're gonna see a difference, but any feedback, if there's someone you want to hear
Yeah.
about, or a case you want us to do maybe more of a deep dive into, like
Mm-hmm.
this would be a great example. Feel free to leave it in the comment section
Mm-hmm.
on TikTok, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you stream.
Yes.
Um, because we're
Wherever you
always looking
listen
to
to your
improve.
podcasts.
Wherever
I
you
love
listen,
when they say that.
especially cheers to all international listeners.
Cheers. Yes, guys, we can't believe that we're international. And so
We
many
got
other
really
states in the United
excited.
States too, which is
We
crazy.
found
Like
out we were supposed
Arkansas.
to be places. hmm
Thank you, Arkansas listeners. Shout out. Yeah, we love
Yeah,
you
I
all.
truly, it's bizarre, but we actually think it's really fun. We were geeking out about our viewers and
We
people who
were.
listen
We
last
were.
week. If only we got clips of that.
I know. We were like,
Boo hoo.
wait,
We were
we have
ready to go.
international. Yeah, we were. But we appreciate
Next,
you guys listening and sticking along with us
yes, yes. Next,
because we're us.
we're two girls and one crumb.
We
One
sure
might.
are.
Well, with that being said, again,
Yes.
follow us. Tune in every Sunday, new podcast. And next week
Yes.
we got a real big juicy one. But again, if there's any you want to listen to,
Hmm.
feel free to leave a comment.
Yes, let us know and we will happily add them to our list. And thanks for listening.
Cheers. Goodbye.
Cheers.